last days. And when it reaches the desert land, all of them will be swallowed up by the earth. All of them. And so then Aisha, from her fiqh and from her deep understanding, she was like, okay, all of them are going to be swallowed up, but there's also other people from them. So she said, oh, Messenger of Allah, why all of them? Like, all of them, there's only certain people that were fighting and raiding, but the other people, what was their issue? And the Prophet ﷺ, the answer, he said, all of them will be swallowed up by the earth, but they will be raised for judgment according to their intentions. And so, yes, there'll be things that will happen to people, but the result of this with Allah is massively different depending on the person's intention. Why was he there? What was he doing there? And to say the calamity falls, and there's the judgment that Allah sends on to certain people, and it's because a certain group of people were doing evil. Okay, everyone died. What about the people that weren't necessarily a part of it? They didn't have anything to do with them. Allah will judge them according to their intentions, and their intentions are going to be the things that ultimately separate them from the rest. And that is what will be the saving factor of it, is that the intention that they have with them. Also, the Aisha, she also narrates from the Prophet ﷺ that there was no immigration after the conquest of Mecca. And that there's no immigration, meaning that the whole land of the Arabian Peninsula now has been pretty much conquered. So there's no immigration from Mecca to Medina anymore, since Mecca has been conquered. There's no need for that immigration, rather they stay there. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said that there's no immigration, or there's no hijrah after the conquest of Mecca, but only jihad and niyyah, and having that intention. And so this is of the things that someone would have. They would have that intention to do that. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said in a very famous hadith, ad-dinu nasiha. And an-nasiha, this word nasiha, a lot of times people will think nasiha means giving advice. But if you read the rest of the hadith, the Sahaba, they asked the great question. They said, liman, like, who is this for? Like, a nasiha, who is this for? And then the Prophet ﷺ said, for Allah, and for his book, and for his messenger, and for the leaders of the Muslims, and the general Muslims, like the general population of them. And so, of course, when we see this word of nasiha here, and we see how would this apply to Allah, the real essence of the meaning of nasaha, or like nasiha, it comes from ikhlas. And that's what the scholars will talk about. The real word here, nasiha, means ikhlas. And that this person, he has like nasahtu al-asad, which means like that I purified the honey from any of the things that were any of the things inside of it that were making it impure, from all the impurities and anything that falls into it and whatnot. And so this is the meaning of nasiha, is that ikhlas. And so of course when it applies to Allah, this means tawheed, and obeying and having that ikhlas and obedience. And when it comes to the Prophet, or when it comes to the book of Allah, this means reading it, learning it, and applying it. And when it comes to the Prophet ﷺ, then this applies to learning the Sunnah, as we're doing right now. Also sending salawat on him, as well as spreading the Sunnah and living according to it. This is that nasiha for the Prophet ﷺ. And of course, the nasiha that is for the leaders also is like this. And it also applies to giving advice. And advice falls into this, and then of course we learn that out. This is appropriate for it, as well as to the rest of the believers. And what is essential though in this advice, a lot of times people will think about this hadith as the whole of religion is just giving advice, but the word itself contains in this that it is ikhlas. So you could say the deen itself is sincerity. And now if it comes into advice, then this advice meaning that comes with the word nasiha, this is another meaning that falls under the generality of having sincerity. So of course, if advice comes without the sincerity, this is not what we're looking at from the deen. We're looking for that advice that comes with sincerity from the heart of a person. When he talks to this person, ultimately he has the good of this other person in mind. This is also the other meanings of nasiha. So the essence of this means wanting good and right and rightful things for the other. And so this is of the beautiful meanings, and I hope this hadith now is understood in this proper way, because a lot of times people, they'll read ad-din al-nasiha, and they take this to mean it's just advice. No, it's actually, it means sincerity in regards to Allah and His Messenger has spoken, and of the Muslims, which encompasses sincere advice. And this is the essence of it. And so this is very important as well. And also, that there will be, also Jabir ibn Abdullah, sorry, he said that we accompanied the Prophet ﷺ in an expedition when he said, and there are some men in Medina that are with you wherever you march and whichever valley you cross. They have not joined you in person because of their illness or because of their inability. And then he said, except that they share the reward with you. And so these people, they weren't able to go on the Ghazwa, like the battle expedition, with the Prophet ﷺ. But they had this in sincerity. If they really were able to do it, they were going to do it, and they had the intention to do it, but they didn't do it. But the Prophet ﷺ, he says, they would share with all of the rewards of the hardship that you went through, as you went through every single valley and all of this that is mentioned in the Quran. Nobody goes over a single valley or goes through any type of hardship except that they're going to get a reward for this. And so these people, they are also counted alongside of the reward, even though they never made it. And this is also mentioned in another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ talks about the person that is the person who is traveling or sick. He'll get the reward of the muqim, that is sahih. Like the person who has been traveling or sick, and if he's traveling, let's say he's shortening his prayers, or if he's sick, he's not able to come to the masjid and that's not, and whatnot, but he's going to get the reward of the person, of him, while he was previously sahih, while he was previously healthy and muqim, like he was a resident. So this also shows the niyyah that a person has, and also this niyyah is not something that is just merely the desires not accompanied by true reality. But this person, he used to go to the masjid. He used to pray all his prayers in the masjid and pray the other things and whatnot. But as soon as something came that stopped him from this, he used to do this. He has the intention, if he wasn't to be held back by this, he has the intention that he would have done it. Allah is going to give him the reward for this. And this is of the fadl, or the favor of Allah, and He gives rewards for these things, even if we didn't necessarily do it. And this is also mentioned in the hadith al-Qudsi, that Allah has said, that Allah has ordered that the good and the bad deeds be written down. But our hasanat and sayyat are going to be written down. And then He made it clear how it's to be written. And He says, whoever intends to do a good deed but does not do it, then Allah records it for him as a full good deed. Hasanat and kamila. Allah records it as a full good deed. This person, he wanted to do such and such. So he has this intention that he's going to go through such and such. And he's prevented from it, or maybe he forgot about it and whatnot, but he had real intention to do it. Allah records it as a full good deed. And then Allah records it. But if he carries out his intention, so he goes through and he actually does this thing, then Allah will write it down as 10, from 10 to 700 fold and even more. And like that, He will increase this deed over all of this. And so this initial intention is the source of either getting the one deed by itself, if the person was solid, and if the person was the truthful is an intention, and it's also the source of the multiplication of this deed to a great matter. So when somebody has the intention, before they go to do whatever they're doing, and of course there's the intention that is accompanied by that act, such as somebody when they're going to pray, they have that intention. But there's also the intention that comes before the act, from way before, which is, it's not called niyyah, but it's called azm in Arabic. And this would be a way, or ham, as it's mentioned in this hadith, where this person intends to do something in the future. And so this is a way for that person to multiply his deeds. And when he's truthful with himself, and he actually follows through with this after having the intention for way back when, then he can get a ridiculously multiplied reward according to the favor of Allah. And from anywhere from 10 to 700. And the word 700, it's not a limited word. Like the Arabs, occasionally they'll just use a big number to show it can be huge. That's what they mean by it. They don't mean a limitation of 700 times. They just mean huge. And then also it comes in the hadith to, however, even more than that. and Allah He will multiply whoever He wishes. And also in the rest of the hadith, but if he intends to do an evil act and has not done it, and he leaves it, meaning he leaves it for the sake of Allah. This person doesn't do the evil act. Of course, if someone intends to do the evil act and they try, but just never make it around, okay, they're not going to get anything from this. They're not getting a reward. But if he leaves it for Allah, then he's going to get one full reward from us. And so this is the beauty that Allah, if the person, yes, he has the evil intention to do such and such act, but then he's like, no, I'm going to stay away from it. For the sake of Allah, he's going to get a reward for this. And this is all within the intention. He's not doing necessarily, he's not necessarily doing an actual action, other than just not following through that with the intention. And if he intends to do an evil act and has not done it, then Allah writes it down with him as a full good deed. And if he intends to do it and has done it, like he actually does, if he follows through with that with that evil deed, then Allah writes it down as that one evil deed. And so this is other things that Allah mentions, how the writing of these deeds goes about. And also notes that there are certain things that the scholars of Usul, they'll talk about when it comes to the actions that are makruh or haram. And so they will give a definition for that which is makruh or haram, and they'll say the makruh action is that which someone will get a reward for leaving it. And they don't leave it at only this, but they'll say that if he leaves it wanting in obedience to Allah, and for like makruh, and he won't be punished for doing it. Or if it's haram, then he will be punished for doing it. Or he'll be like subject to punishment from it. And so they will say, they'll be very keen and specific to talk about that person. If he leaves one of these acts, he needs to leave it with intention. If he doesn't leave it with intention, he's not going to get that reward for leaving the haram. And so leaving the haram needs to be an act of intention that somebody has when they do this. And it's not just because, of course, they're not going to be punished for anything. If they leave the haram and it's just because it never even came into their mind, they're not going to be punished whatsoever. But if they intentionally put themselves in scenarios for the sake of leaving haram, this is where they'll get a reward for intentionally leaving the haram, or intentionally leaving that which is makruh. But if they just don't do it with no intention, then they're not going to miss out on this reward. And so this is other benefits that someone would have when it comes to leaving off actions. That if you want to get a reward for leaving off that which is prohibited, whether it's from something that's makruh or it's haram, then you gotta have the intention for this. And that is what's going to give you the reward for leaving. Of course, you're not going to be held liable regardless. And also, the last one of the last things I'll mention is this hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, he talks about, and this is about bad intention here, that ما ذئبان جائعان أرسلا في غنم بأفسد لها من حرص المرء على الماء والشرف لدينه. And so this hadith that Ka'b ibn Malik, he narrates from his father that the Prophet ﷺ said that two wolves free among sheep, like we have two hungry wolves free among the sheep, just going at it, are no more destructive to those sheep than a man's desire for wealth and honor is to his religion. Like it's worse for that. So this actual hadith, Ibn Rajab, he actually, he wrote a whole book on this. And he talks about the importance of someone when it comes to these two issues, which is the desire that someone has for wealth and the desire for nobility, or like to be seen as something in the sight of others. And so he mentioned this, and this is of the things that, of course, if you can imagine, and this is of the beautiful ways of teaching that the Prophet ﷺ would use is giving an example. And of course, if you imagine two hungry wolves that just let out in a pen of sheep. They're gonna kill this one, kill this one, kill this one. They're not even doing. They're not gonna even focus on getting just a good meal. They're just gonna go crazy because they're very hungry. And so they will destroy the sheep in totality. And this is the example that the Prophet ﷺ gives to someone who was looking for wealth, and he's looking for prestige within the sight of others, like a man with sharaf. And this is what it does to his deen. It destroys it completely. And so somebody who they go into acts of worship, or maybe they go into DAWD, maybe they go into some of these other things, and all of a sudden their intention will change, and no longer is the intention for Allah, but rather they want something from this dunya, or they want something for people to talk about them. This will absolutely destroy them. Just like these wolves that are hungry, let loose in a bunch of sheep, they're just going to go crazy and destroy them. This is what will happen. Of course, the stories of this are massive. People that they will start off doing a good thing, but then at the end, all of a sudden something goes terribly wrong, and they turn away from the deen, or they're calling to something that's totally far away from the deen. And the reason for this is because their intention is switched somewhere in there, or it was not right from the beginning, and this will completely destroy their deen in totality if they let that intention go from pleasing Allah to the seeking of wealth and of prestige, or like the people who look at them like fame and fortune and that stuff. And so these are of the things that's very important for someone to look at in that. And so we only have about 5 minutes left. And of course, we can see what you all guys are open for. But inshallah, we will end this here. And any of you that have a question, inshallah, I'll answer that.
So inshallah, sometimes you would start an action with good intention, but then afterwards it becomes a habit.
Mm-hmm.
Like going to DAWAH, are you going every week, but you're doing as a schedule or as a routine, not intending every time.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
So if somebody does an action and they make it a habit, then the fact that they made it a habit is actually a good thing. And inshallah, the original intention that they have will carry over, as long as they don't let something else come and change that intention. And so yes, you do have to look at the intention and you need to keep up with it. But the things becoming a habit, this is normal, and this can actually be it can be a safeguard for you to continue doing good. This is the best way someone can do good, is to make it a habit. But you should make sure that you don't let weeds come into this. And something that is going to corrupt that initial intention. And also note that when somebody gets, when you talk about the habit, this was something else I wanted to talk about, was niyyah, and like having this niyyah is, in constantly keeping up with it, is like a ship in the sea. If you were to have your destination that you're trying to go to, and you point the rudder to your destination, and you leave it, you're not going to get there. Because you got to keep constantly, the sea is blowing you about, and there's going to be these whispers from the shaitan from this thing, and you're going to have this other thing that comes up. You're constantly going to have to keep up on it and adjust. As the wind blows you this way it came, and this way, you're going to have to constantly adjust this need. And so this is important that you keep up on it. But just the fact that somebody that they always go to the masjid, they don't even think about why they go to the masjid anymore, they just go, it's just ingrained in them. This is beautiful. It's not going to take away the essence of the reward, but if they want the full reward, then they need to bring that full intention to the table when they're coming. Any other questions?
Yeah, apologies if you were to touch on this, but I was curious. Is it ever permissible to mix your intention in the sense that someone invites me to the DAWAH table and he tells me afterwards, let's go get food, for example, right? And let's go hang out afterwards, or we'll hang out at the DAWAH table or something like that, right? We actually go for the DAWAH table to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, should I be inviting people for food at the DAWAH table? Like, should I be doing that? Like, do I renew my intention?
So like having incentives to do good, this is not necessarily something that's going to destroy the act of worship. Like the act of worship that you did, if you had an incentive to do it for something else, and this was something that did help you, it's not going to destroy it, but it can't be the essence of why you did this thing. And if it becomes the essence, it destroys it. If it becomes a major factor of why you did this, then you will lose a lot of the reward. But of course, at the same time, if you're calling people to do good and you try to incentivize them, then the Prophet ﷺ used to do this for new Muslims. Like with new Muslims that would come into Islam, he would give them tons of gifts so that they would love Islam. And yes, this is like dunya that came from. And also, he would tell people that they got greedy, that you're not gonna benefit. You're taking all the barakah out of this by just making extra more. Allah's not gonna give you more barakah. But so like the essence of incentivization to help someone who's weak is great. But at the same time, they should be reminded that ultimately you got to work on your niyyah and make sure that your niyyah ultimately is well. If somebody takes some extra good on the side and their niyyah was perfect and it was for Allah, the essence of that was for Allah, this doesn't destroy their action, and this is fine. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you have any tips on how we can question what our NIA might be? Like maybe we have a habit that's just really old and it's a bad habit, and we're trying to get rid of it, but we don't really know why we're doing it.
Yeah, this is important, and that somebody looks at this is kind of you gotta look at the real reason, and the first and foremost, like that real reason why you do something, and ultimately, like how we got here. Of course, we never got here except by that Allah created us and put us into this existence, and as well as Allah is the beginning of how we got here. Allah is also the one that we return to. Remember this. Remember that Allah is the one that I'm going to return to. And make sure that everything that you do, first and foremost, the only thing that I want is I want Allah. Like, I want Allah from this action. And if this is your first and foremost the goal, and then you have other things that are means to getting to this, then this is great. And so occasionally there will be good things that come up in our life, and we will find that these good things have benefits. Such as, and say it's a bad habit that somebody is in, and one of the things that happens from this bad habit is that somebody is not able to focus. So he's like, all right, I wanna focus, so I'm gonna do this. And it's a good thing for him to learn how to focus or whatever, leave social media and scrollings and all that other stuff. So he leaves this, but his intention is to get the benefit. Or maybe he goes and he reads Quran because he likes the benefits that comes out when how he feels from this. Or maybe he goes and he prays in Salah for at the very beginning, never lets it leave him. And the benefit that he gets this from his own spiritual uplifting. This is what he's looking for. He's gonna miss the reward if he were to do this first and foremost for the pleasure of Allah. He does this first and foremost for the pleasure of Allah. And this is the first main goal. And after this, if he needs incentives to help him out, and he's like, okay, if I do this, this is gonna give me peace and tranquility in my life. Okay, this is going to give me community with my brothers, and I'm going to feel, I'm going to have this other sense of things. If this comes afterwards, no problem, but the essence always has to be, look back, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I'm going back to Allah, and I want Him to be pleased with me. That has to be the essence. And of course, like, the other side things that help. This is okay. This is okay, but the best is if you don't have to use these other things, and it's only for the sake of Allah, without them. But we are weak. And sometimes we need other incentives, like mind tricks or things that help us do that thing which is good. And there's no problem with that, inshallah. Any other questions?
Thank you so much for the lecture. So, quick question, probably a continuation of this lecture is, what would you recommend some things someone can do to kind of be steadfast in your good intentions, what you want to do, not get distracted by other things? So some tips and or recommendations with regards to that.
Yeah, the one aspect I believe I mentioned, which is self-awareness and constantly rechecking yourself, because the nafs, like the soul of the person, he loves to trick you, and so like they'll constantly lie to you, like your own heart, or like yourself will lie to you all the time because it has its own goals, and it's run by power. And so this, we have to constantly look at ourselves and look at our inner intentions with suspicion. And of course, we should never let this suspicion drive us into insanity. But we shouldn't expect that if I look at myself and I say to myself, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, that I actually am. I should still have a suspicion of myself. And this is why Allah swears by an-nafs al-lawwama. In Surah Al-Qiyamah, Allah swears by the nafs, like that nafs, that soul, that's lawwama, that's constantly giving a loan, which is a blame. It constantly blames the person and tells him, like, this is a blameworthy, like, it constantly shows this person, you're not at the pinnacle of ikhlas. You got problems on this. And this is why the Salaf, they'll talk about the jihad that they did with their niyyah. They'll talk about this is jihad. They don't expect that just because they looked inside themselves and they said, okay, I'm doing this for Allah, okay, I'm good. No, they don't. This is not acceptable, but I'm still going to go through with it, and I'm going to work on it. And so this is other things we can't like that. We can't trust ourselves when it comes to our niyyah, but the actions that we do and the forcing of the actions, that it sometimes it has to be a forcing of actions for us to do the good actions in spite of the need that isn't quite strong enough yet. Sometimes we'll have to force ourselves into this, but this, if someone continues with this, it'll be very strong. The Salaf they used to talk about, a lot of them, they would say that we sought knowledge at the beginning without good intention. And then, once we sought knowledge for a period, then we fixed our intention. And this is good. And ultimately, somebody who seeks knowledge at the beginning, they don't know how to have good intention in the first place. So while they're seeking, and they learn a little bit, they'll realize, okay, actually, intention is something that I need to fix, and I need to work on this. And you keep going. You keep going in this, but it takes a constant awareness of, and also suspicion of yourself, and also coming back to the Quran and Sunnah to help remind you of the last day. You're meeting Allah. You're going to come back and stand before Allah. And also don't let people and their thoughts about you affect the decision ultimately. It's always going to be for the sake of Allah. And don't let them, as I mentioned, don't let them make you increase an act of worship. And don't make a person the cause of you increasing acts of worship for Allah. And also, don't let them stop you from increasing acts of worship, or the waswas of shaitan from stopping you from increasing acts of worship for Allah. And so this is very key. I hope, of course, this is not an issue where, since it is an inner battle, like the outward actions are a result of that. But when you see that you're able to stay firm on certain actions, then this can be a sign and an indicator that you were sincere in Allah. Any other questions? Yeah. The word azam, it means to have a strong will to do something in the future. That's how they usually look at that. And so this also Allah refers to the highest levels of the prophets as ulul azm, that they had this strong will and intention. There's not any other questions, we'll for today. Thank you so much for your listening and for your contemplations. May Allah grant you sincerity and that which is between Him and that which is apparent, and may He give us tawfiq and accomplishing that which He is pleased with. Allah Ta'ala. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.